Welcome to the Health and Wealth Power Hour, the podcast that provides you with the knowledge and insights you need to achieve physical, mental, and financial well-being. I'm your host, Harlan Pickett, a business consultant who's passionate about helping people achieve a more balanced and healthier life. Each week, we'll deep dive into topics related to health and wealth, including retirement income planning, innovative healthcare solutions, alternative funded health plans, and specific actions individuals and business owners can take to gain control of their finances, have access to affordable quality health care, and achieve peace of mind. We'll also be joined by innovative experts who will share their knowledge and insights on prevalent topics. So, whether you're looking to grow your wealth or improve your health, you've come to the right place. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and empowered. Let's get started. Well, guess what time it is? That's right. It is time for another exciting episode of the Health and Wealth Power Hour. That's right. I am your host, Harlan Pickett. We are so appreciative of you listening in this time. And man, we got a good one for you. I'll tell you right now, you talk about overachiever. How about MD and PhD? Oh yeah, it wasn't good enough just to get that MD, had to have the PhD, had to do all the things to get up there. This lady also was not just satisfied being a physician. She decided to be a healer. Ooh, what does that mean? Stick around. You're going to find out. We are blessed today to talk to Dr. Cindy Starke. She is the physician that became a healer, an incredible story that she's going to share with you today. Cindy, welcome aboard the Health and Wealth Power Hour. It is such an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much. And I meant to say before we even started shooting this that I really like your name, Harlan. I've never heard that name in my entire life.
Well, I'm glad that you got to hear it this time because I'm very happy that you're here with us today.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, so I always say I feel like this ever since the pandemic happened that I transitioned over from being a physician to being a healer. Because to me, Harlan, what a healer does is really heal people from the inside out. They actually cause a healthier version of the person after interacting with the healer. But when you're a physician in America, and I granted it's mostly because I work in the hospital system, but I just was taking care of so many people in hospitalized settings. And they're people that just don't take care of themselves. And so you can sit there and do all kinds of things, give them medicine, even do surgeries, and they just go right back home and keep doing the same stuff they always did. And so it's just made me feel like I never really got a chance to heal anybody. So now that I've retired from full-time medicine, I do what I'm really passionate about. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today and your listeners. So
that's great. And going down this pathway now, you very interesting. You had a pretty rough childhood situation that kind of led you down this pathway, and potentially, who knows what the fate would have had for you otherwise, but potentially became more than what you would have maybe because of some pretty dramatic instances when you were younger.
Yeah, I've often thought, so, and I don't mind talking about it, I kind of had not even thought it was abuse. I literally didn't even think it was sexual abuse with the way that it had happened. But what had happened is I'm from a blue-collar family. My mother and my sister, they both cut hair. My father and my brother were both electricians. And here I am, the baby of the family. There's a pretty big age difference between my brother and sister and then me. So they were born back to back, and then 4 years later comes Cindy. And so around the time that I was just becoming, even going through puberty at age 14, my brother, unfortunately, at 19 years old, had suffered with some drugs and alcohol, and all of his friends were into drugs and alcohol. They had gotten kicked out of their houses, and my mom and dad, out of the goodness of their heart, were putting these young men up. And because they had gotten kicked out, my brother even went to jail a time or two, and so did they. And so what happened was this perfect storm of baby Cindy, who was a people pleaser, who never wanted to get her brother in trouble. And then her brother and all of his drunk or stoned or high friends, mom. And then in addition to that, mom and dad being friends with some people up the street. And they just kind of left me alone with all these 19-year-old boys. And some things happened to me in my bedroom after I tried to go to sleep every night that I wasn't able to tell anybody what happened. I don't even remember how I got the boys out of my bedroom. Maybe I would just turn over and just act like, please stop doing that to my body. That's not what I want to be done to my body. I'm going to sleep right now. I got to get up and go to 7th grade in the morning, you know? And yeah, so it just, I just couldn't get it far enough away from there. And I wonder sometimes, and so I got away from there by going through an education path, because that was not anything that anybody in my family did, right? And so I wonder sometimes if that hadn't happened and I hadn't wanted to leave my childhood home and city and family like that, what would have happened? Maybe I would have been a hairdresser like mom and my sister, but I just really don't know. It is interesting, isn't it? How some really bad things end up turning into great things.
Yeah, it's once again, you don't know what your pathway would have been, but just, reading about your story, you even talk about, there was a lot of guilt there. There was a lot of things that happened to you there that you had to forgive yourself about, but it pushed you. It pushed you to accomplish things that no one in your family had ever done, because you had to, in essence, you had to prove yourself, right? If to no one else, to yourself.
Yeah. Good summation of the story. And thank you for reading the story. My dad has often said to me, I just can't believe a kid of mine has the gumption to do what you've done in your life. Because, everybody else, I mean, seriously, all the women are hairdressers or they're receptionists. Like, nobody does the stuff I did, but I just couldn't stop. And then once I realized I was good at it, Harlan, and I just couldn't stop. But then I was proving to myself, I think, that I was worthy of love, worthy of protection. And I'm like, if I just do all these, get all these degrees and get all these scholarships, then maybe I'll be good enough. But the truth, of course, was always is that I was good enough all along.
Right. Right. But once again, a lot of times we have to overcome that ourselves, right? We have to turn that. We have to remind ourselves, or be reminded in many cases, that we are worthy. I love some of the words that you had in your story, which, instead of your legacy being a tragedy, you turned it into a triumph, which is very true, because think of how many people that can go through some of the things you went through, that it becomes nothing but a tragedy.
Yeah. And they talk about the stuff that happened to them at 14 as the reason why everything in their life is as screwed up as it is right now. And I just saw, to me, I didn't see myself as a victim. I mean, that happened. And I have been told that there were people in the neighborhood that kind of knew what was going on down at the Buckner household. And there were some women praying for me really strongly, Harlan. And I never knew that. I just know that this one fateful day, I did have a boyfriend at 15, and he knew what had happened. And I don't know if he told his dad, but his dad just said, Cindy, I think you're smart enough to go to college. And so it was my high school boyfriend's dad that put the idea into my head that I could even go to college. And then once you're around people, birds of a feather flock together. Same thing that happened with my brother and his friends. But then I just did what all the other genetics majors did, and that was go into medicine. I mean, it's just, it was really cool how it all happened. And it really made me realize the potential of the human mind once you open your mind to it.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You just said, you do what anyone else that goes into genetics does. You go into medicine. Okay. But there had to be something that got you to go to genetics, because come on, people don't just sit around saying, you know what I think I'll do? I think I'm going to get into genetics. I mean, I guess some people do. Maybe you did. My daughter's going to biochemistry. She's actually taking a genetics class right now. Who knows what she's going to do with that? But I promise you, she just didn't sit around thinking that's what she was going to do as well. What got you down that pathway?
I'll tell you that, good question. And as a 17-year-old, I graduated high school at 17, and I was there at this big old University of Georgia, 26,000 undergrads, and must have been 70 majors just in the biological sciences, 70. And then when my dad wanted me to prove that I could get into Georgia Tech, which was, the technical, I don't know where you're from. Where are you from?
We're in Texas. I'm in San Antonio.
Okay. Well, so maybe you've never even heard of Georgia Tech, but it's a big rivalry in the state of Georgia.
Yellow Jackets. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Rambling Georgia Tech. And so he wanted me to say that I had gotten into there. And so I applied, and of course I got in. And but there was only 3 majors in the sciences: chemistry, biology, and physics. And at Georgia, University of Georgia, where I decided to go, there were 70 under just the biological sciences. But before I could even tell that I liked biology, I thought I wanted to be a math major at one point. I thought I wanted to be an English major, but all I can say is the biological sciences lit me up, and they were really fun to study for and easy to make A's in. And so the further you went, I could see I didn't want to do physics. I didn't want to do biochem. I didn't want to do anything chemistry. And so organic chemistry, physical chemistry, none of that. And so I really just made my decision based on what I like to study the most.
By default, right? You knew what you didn't want to do, and then you looked at what was left, and you're like, well, there it is.
Yeah. And part of me I really loved dissecting the cadavers, so I was going to major in human anatomy. But literally, I'm not kidding you, Harlan, the only thing that I saw anatomy majors doing were going into sports medicine, and I don't have an athletic bone in my body, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything with sports or rehab. And I seriously... And even in genetics, you had to decide molecular genetics, epidemiologic genetics, like all these things, or population genetics. And I'm like, no, I want DNA inside of our body, molecular genetics. So yeah, it was an easy decision for me. But I know most my kids think that's crazy that I did that. Now that they're in college right now, they're like, you chose the hardest major there was. How did you take organic chemistry, Mom? I said, I don't know. It was just easy for me. Something about my brain was just wired that way.
Yeah.
Seriously, I have no great answer for that.
But, okay, but there's still a jump there. So you've got genetics. You could go into medicine, but you didn't have to become a physician per se. You didn't have to go down that pathway. What truly made you go that way? Because there's a lot of things you could have done in medicine with genetics that didn't involve actually seeing anyone.
Truly true. And this is another sad story. I guess it's a family tragedy. It wasn't so specific toward me and my body, but okay. So my sister was older than me, and she had one baby, and he was like my little son too, because I was in college and he was born, and when I was a sophomore, and then she had her second baby, and I was, almost finishing graduating, okay, and I just did what every other genetics major did, actually, and it was to go into graduate school. And so I was just going to go get a PhD in genetics and have a lab and do some sort of research. I was in a plant genetics lab at the time, and I was studying the transfer of genetic material and these irises in Louisiana, and, it was just like, it kind of sparked my brain as to what all's out there in genetic research. And so I said, well, I'm just going to, go to grad school and do that. That's because that is what most people were doing with the genetics background. But my sister, unfortunately, baby number 2, he was born completely healthy, Harlan. But I don't know. We had no inkling this was going to happen. He went to bed one day when he was 8 weeks old, and he woke up and he had passed away in the middle of the night. And we're like, we couldn't believe what had just happened. She thought he had just slept through the night. And I was 21 years old. And when we said, well, can you please do an autopsy on him? His name was Cody. And because what happened to him? He was perfectly fine. I mean, he was a beautiful, healthy 8-week-old baby boy, and they determined he had died of something called sudden infant death syndrome. And that little baby's pediatrician, and my sister's gynecologist that had delivered him came. I don't know if they themselves came into our house. I can't remember that little piece. It was all very, very a shocker and a lot of trauma, as you can imagine. Very unexpected death in the family and burying that sweet little baby. And but they arranged for our family to get infant CPR classes because my sister definitely wanted a bigger family. We knew there was going to be another baby. You know, she would, whenever she was given permission, she's going to try to have another baby. And when I saw those two doctors bring that into our family and give us a sense of hope that we were going to make it through that horrible situation we just went through, that's what made me want to be a doctor. So that's what happened.
You saw, and this is something that has been lost in essence in a lot of the United States, is this patient-physician relationship, right? Big health systems don't allow for that anymore. Hospital systems don't allow for that anymore. You're not allowed to have these because you don't get enough time to spend. And with a patient, if you don't have any time to spend with a patient, you cannot develop a relationship. And, you know, patients themselves get very frustrated because they feel like doctor's not listening. And when I go see the doctor, I've got 5 minutes with them and all they do is prescribe me a medication or send me to a different doctor, right? They just send me to a specialist. So what you're saying is the actual relationship between patients and doctors is what made you want to become an actual physician.
Yes. This healthcare system is not conducive to it.
Right. But then what happened? You found out what I just said, right? You got in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What I signed up for.
Exactly. And I said to myself, I want to make a bigger impact on people than just those 5 minutes they give us at the bedside. And I still practice medicine. Don't get me wrong. I do it 9 days a month. I like it a lot better 9 days a month than 22 days a month. And then on the side, on the other 22 days, I help men and women just really blow the lid off of what's capable in their mind. And I help them overcome limiting beliefs. I do this whole subconscious repatterning and optimization. It's called a reticular activating system clear out. It's kind of, it might be too much to explain in the scope of this, but it is an incredible system that helped me realize that I was worthy. Okay. I went through my own healing during the pandemic. And when I saw how much I was overachieving, just trying to show someone I'm worthy of protection, I'm worthy of love from a man, I'm worthy of this, and this. I said, I can bring those same tools to other people. And they don't have to go through what I went through. Because you know what I always tell people, Harlan? The trauma is not what happened to you that night. It is what you told yourself for 40 years after that night. And that's the big effect of the trauma. So that's what I help people with. And it helps people with everything from overcoming low self-worth and imposter syndrome to lack of forgiveness to, people. A lot of my client success stories are people that have thought they were incapable of anything else, or that they were emotionally overeating or not worthy of like standing up for themselves in a work like a boss employee type situation. So yeah.
Well, so let's dive into that a little bit and talk about some of the success stories that you've seen, some of the folks that you would really believe in a traditional sense that maybe they're just lost, right? Because unfortunately, we have what people just consider lost humans that are just unsalvageable. I don't believe that's the case for anyone, but I believe that some fall through the cracks and are not able to get the help that they need. So talk about especially some of the more difficult situations that you faced. And I really want to talk about those, Cindy, because there's someone out there listening that knows someone that can get help, but they have to give them the hope that they can get help. So some of the more complicated or desperate situations that you've seen, I'd love to hear about some of those.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the story about one of my clients. She was about 25 when she came to me, and she's a military housewife, marriage number 2, baby number 3. And she had been brought up in her mom and dad were severely mentally ill and, like schizophrenia level illness. And the mom had to get off of her mood stabilizers when she was pregnant with my client. And so by the time my client was born, the mom had been off medicines for 9 months and was almost catatonic in a bed for like what sounds like a good 6 months. And this client of mine, her father didn't know how to handle this baby. And so he literally tried to take her to a bar and give her away. And finally, once the mother got restabilized and the father got put on some medicines, they tried their best to raise this child. But when she was, 7 to 12 years old, her mom and dad got not just accused, but what is that word when you actually get, you're not just accused, but
she was convicted.
Guilty. Yeah, convicted of the crime of truancy. So they didn't even take my client to school. Or they would just leave her at home like at 12 and 14 years old. Anyway, she's a high school dropout, teenage pregnancy, and teenage mom. And she came to me at 25-ish, and she just did not feel like she was capable of anything better in her life. She felt like she was damaged goods, and she has such hopelessness in her eyes. And I felt like that was like a hopelessness in her soul. And so all I did with her is, I just wanted her to believe in herself. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that feeling of hopeless. Like you had such a terrible background that there's no way you can do something else in your future. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And so I believed in her. I poured into her. I helped her, resource all of her inner children, meaning, 6-month-old version of herself, 12-year-old version of herself, and everybody else up until present day. And that girl started believing in herself too. This little tiny spark of a flame that could have been just literally blown out with just a simple little, gust of wind. It turned into this roaring fire. She started believing in herself. She spoke up in her marriage. She started disciplining her children like they needed to be disciplined because she was letting them run all over her, Harlan. And she went back to college. I don't remember when she had gotten her GED, but then she went back to college, and she is a psychologist now. And she just called me last week saying, I just got interviewed for the highest paying job I've ever gotten interviewed for, and I'm going to be a psychologist on base. I have my own battalion underneath me, and I mean, it's just like literally amazing. And that right there is the best example of the power of these tools. Just getting rid of all those limiting beliefs. Because let me tell you, your subconscious mind is there to protect you. And so all these things that have happened to you kind of set you up with this like parental programming, societal programming, and what you see is true. And in order to protect you, it's like your brain gets almost mutated in a way that you only see things that you have seen in the past so that you know not to do those, but you can't see everything else. So the tools I teach are helping you see the world as it is. I hope that's enough information for it to make sense. It's a beautiful thing to witness.
So this process that you kind of go through, is this something you utilized? And then was that kind of the basis for your book?
Those tools that I was taught is what helped me realize, what medicine is no longer, speaking to my soul. I need to kind of touch people's lives in a more profound way, and that's what helped me leave medicine. And also, I left some really damaging relationships that I was in too, where I just wasn't getting the love and respect that I needed. So that's what those tools did. But my book, and I will write a book about that one day, Harlan. That is next on the horizon.
All right.
But my book that I wrote was about my journey to triathlon. In the middle of all that, I just wanted to see what I was capable of, so I trained for it.
You didn't have enough on your plate. You didn't have enough going on, Cindy. Let's see if we can throw something like a triathlete on there too.
Yeah, my poor kids. They said after I finally finished the triathlon, and then I started writing a book about it. They said, "Mom, stop doing I don't want you to write that book. The book is taking up more time than the triathlon training. But I had to get this story out because it was on my heart. It was literally like just lurching out of my chest. But it was just the basic premise of that book is don't let failure define you, because I trained for 2 years to do a triathlon. And then on the day of the actual triathlon, I failed, meaning I got pulled off the course because I was going too slow. And instead of letting my whole triathlon journey end right there, I said, because what I hadn't done is I hadn't accounted for really tall waves in the ocean, and I didn't look at the biking route. So I didn't get lost, but I just went too slow, and I didn't realize they'd pull you off if you went too slow. And so I just repeated all of my triathlon training for another 8 weeks, and I did another one 8 weeks later, and I crossed that dang finish line. And then I wrote a book about it, because I think a lot of people just would have said, "Oh well, I tried and I didn't succeed, so the story's over." And I'm like, that's not the end of my story. So that's what that book was about.
All right. Well, and folks, if you want to find that book, you can find it out on Amazon. It's called From Fear and Failure to Finish Line: Unleash Your Potential and Discover the Champion Within. So that's pretty cool too. That is another one of the things that Miss Overachiever over here has accomplished, because it's not good enough to be an MD and a PhD and then have all the stuff. I'm changing from medicine to this at the same time, and I'm also going to do a triathlon. Yeah.
Just throw that in there.
Yeah.
I know. Guilty as charged.
Well, at least you're not boring.
I'm excited all the time. I think I just have too much excitement in my life. I just have a lot of excitement in my heart. I just always want to be doing something different. I feel like I'm a perpetual learner, and I just get really excited, especially when I can help other people realize that they don't have to live their whole entire rest of their life in their living room watching other people do fun stuff on TV. They can do fun stuff too.
And, I'm going to tell you that one of the things that I think, I had a young lady on here a while back that helped folks that had disabilities or mobility issues. She wrote books about trails, nature trails that they could go on. So she helped them find places they could spend time in nature. So think about that. It doesn't matter what's going on, is my point. There's something for you to do other than sit and watch your shows, okay? You don't have to sit and watch your shows, whether it's overcoming something like that so that you can spend time outdoors again, whether it is a fear because you have failed, you can do it. Whatever. If you think that your past has to be an absolute 100% vision of what your future looks like, you're wrong. You have a chance. And this is what you're really talking about, right? So you're really talking about, don't let your past dictate your future. You can overcome so much if you just put your mind to it.
Yes, sir. That is the whole story of my whole, I feel like that's my life's calling, is to teach people that, and I don't ever want people to, do things that won't be ecological, meaning good for them, good for the other person, good for the world. I'm just trying to show them to how they can believe in themselves with holistic healing modalities and just really intense coaching and limiting belief obliteration. And it's not like I want anyone to go out there and cause any harm to anybody else just because they want to do something great. But, I love that story that someone went and found disability-friendly nature trails.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
Because I'm a big nature girl. I think that's one of the biggest places I've found healing during all of this is to spend time deep in the forest. And it's so funny. My dad and his girlfriend, my mom and dad got divorced a few years ago, and my dad and his girlfriend get so worried when I go and camp alone. But sometimes I just want to camp alone And I take a tent and I take all my food and my little stove and I make a fire. And they said, well, what if something happens to you? And I said, I just don't like to live my life based on fear. I cannot stay in this house all the time by myself. I need to go do some things alone sometimes. I'm going to be just fine. I promise you I'll call you as soon as I get out of the trail and back into my car. But yeah, I think too many people just think they need to be so small, Harlan.
Yeah. And one of the other things I love that what you do is you're not just focused on, you talk about a 25-year-old, but there's so many people that are in, the second half of their life or later in life, or they've had a failed marriage or a failed job. After 19 years of being in corporate America decided it didn't need me anymore. And I tell this story and say, it's the best thing that ever happened in my life. Corporate America pays you just enough and gives you just enough benefits to keep you chained to that. Yeah, that's exactly right. Whenever I was laid off from my job, it was the best day of my life because it opened up the rest of my life and all the opportunities that came there. But I think about, at the same time I was laid off, there were other people in the department. I won't name any people. They were also laid off and they were devastated. They were devastated. Their life was over. Okay. In their mind, right then, their life was over. They were down. They were depressed. And they were like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, this is the greatest day ever, man. I couldn't leave here, but they're actually paying me a year's salary to leave. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm going to step right in. I get to be the entrepreneur I've always wanted to be. Boom, I'm gone. See ya. But they're like, I got to have a job. I got to do something else. I don't have any other skills. Yeah, you do. Everyone's
Open your eyes.
Come on.
Yeah. I call it right here.
Understand, if someone's 60 years old and they're leaving corporate America, it can be very scary. But there's really no place in your life that you can't reinvent yourself.
So true.
And the only person that's keeping that from happening is you.
It's so true. There's just so much out here in this beautiful earth. I have a backpack and I call it my home office, and I have a couple of virtual jobs, and as long as I have a laptop and an internet connection, I can service patients, clients. I have a hospice gig and a home health gig, and I just everything I do is through this laptop right here. So I stick it in my home office on my backpack, and I'm out the door. I can have a job from any parking lot. Like I do have to kind of get close to a building sometimes so I can have their Wi-Fi, but it's just so freeing, so incredibly freeing. So yeah, I hope those people will eventually find out that there are other things to do in life.
Yeah. And, even someone who kind of has to retire, right? We're going to give you a couple of options. You can go out the door, you can go out the door. Right. Yeah. One of them is you can retire, and the other one is we can fire you or lay you off or whatever. And this one you'll make this, and this one you'll make that. And if you're not ready to retire, just because they said it was time for you to retire, doesn't mean you have to retire. There's things to do.
Right. That's right.
And I think we put ourselves, we really do. We try to put ourselves in this box. And then once again, so many times we believe we're not good enough to do anything else. And it is, it's self-defeating. It really is.
You're right.
I am going to let folks know where they can find you. They can find you out at Dr. It's the DR. You have to spell it out, folks. Dr. Cindy Starke, and that's Starke with an E.com. Lots of information there. You can see other interviews and podcasts that she's done as well. You can also book a call with her to see if there is a little bit of a connection there that she can help you overcome some of these limiting beliefs that you may have. I see you also have a free masterclass on there that someone can look at. And of course, a link to your book that has nothing to do with any of the things that we talked about, except for that one little part where we talked about your book, which still makes me laugh.
Except for don't let your past define you. Don't let your failure define you.
Failure define you. That's right.
It kind of ties into the theme of of all this in a way.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so very much for being on. It has been absolutely a joy to see the joy that you have in life and the joy that you have in helping others overcome their limiting beliefs and become all that they were intended to be and that the Lord put them on this earth to be.
Yes. Thank you so much, Harlan. It's really my honor to talk to your listeners this afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Sadie. I know you got places to be and things to do. We're going to let you cut out of here. Thank you once again, ma'am, for being on. All right, folks. And thank you for listening to this week's Health and Wealth Power Hour. We will catch you next time. We are out of here.